The authenticity advantage, owning your truth in a world of judgment. Introduction. Have you ever felt the prickle of unseen eyes, the weighty silence pregnant with unspoken queries? The subtle eddy in conversation when your revelations diverge from the expected current? We inhabit a world that often prizes conformity, a silent mandate to sand down our sharp edges, mask our eccentricities, and present a curated self deemed safe, acceptable. This scrutiny, while perhaps not always born of malice, frequently stems from a deep-seated yearning for order, a solace found in the familiar. Yet, the toll exacted by this ceaseless calibration, this meticulous performance, is staggering. It erodes our self-worth, cultivates insecurity, and leaves us adrift from our genuine being. We expend precious energy contorting ourselves into molds never fashioned for us, sacrificing our singular brilliance upon the altar of external validation. For eons, many of us have been schooled in the belief that acceptance, belonging, lies in the art of assimilation. We learn to anticipate the correct demeanor, the palatable presentation, hoping that by minimizing our distinctions, we might evade the sting of censure. Ironically, as countless have discovered, this strategy often proves self-defeating. The very elements we strive to conceal can become potent attractors of scrutiny. The more we endeavor to fit in, the more we risk feeling like imposters, or worse, the more we invite questions about our perceived deviation from the norm. It is a frustrating, spirit-sapping cycle. We begin to don a costume, a meticulously crafted persona designed as a bulwark against judgment. But this guise, while offering a fleeting illusion of protection, ultimately stifles our authentic selves, leaving us feeling unseen and unheard. But what if the very key to unlocking profound personal power and liberation resides not in compliance, but in the audacious act of wholly embracing your true essence? What if the very attributes that set you apart, the perceived imperfections and singular traits, are not liabilities, but your most potent assets? This book posits that true strength and liberation are discovered not in concealing your truth, but in owning it. Authenticity, as we shall delve, is not synonymous with flawlessness or perpetual agreeableness. It is the alignment of your inner landscape with your outer expression, the courage to speak your truth, even when it chafes, and the grace to allow yourself to be witnessed in your entirety with all your intricate facets. This is the very heart of the authenticity advantage, the profound potency that blossoms when you cease apologizing for who you are and commence celebrating it. It is the capacity to navigate the inevitable tides of judgment not by receding, but by standing resolute, armed with self-knowledge and an unshakable self-acceptance. When you embrace your authentic self, you begin to transmute discomfort into fortitude, criticism into propellant, and vulnerability into a conduit for profound connection. You unlock a resilience capable of weathering any tempest and a freedom no external affirmation can bestow. In the unfolding chapters, we shall embark on a pilgrimage to cultivate this authenticity advantage. We will explore practical modalities for fostering emotional detachment, learning to observe judgment without internalizing it, akin to a dispassionate witness. We shall learn to harness the potent alchemy of humor, deploying genuine laughter to disarm provocations and reclaim your sovereign ground. We will master the art of strategic communication, forging responses that safeguard your boundaries and articulate your truth without escalating discord, drawing upon the power of concise, impactful declarations. We will learn to embrace your imperfections, understanding how to gracefully roll with it and transform perceived shortcomings into unique strengths, inspired by the ethos of claiming what distinguishes you. Furthermore, we will learn to navigate the currents of attention and disquiet, cultivating the ability to relax into the spotlight and transmute anxiety into an advantage. This book serves as your compass, guiding you to shed the encumbrance of external expectations and step fully into the unadulterated power of your authentic self. It is about transforming the dread of judgment into a catalyst for growth and discovering your voice in a world that frequently seeks to mute it. The world may cast its judgments, but your truth remains your immutable anchor. By embracing it, you do more than merely withstand judgment. You transcend it. You unearth a deeper wellspring of freedom, a more resonant connection, and a power that is uniquely, unapologetically yours. Let us commence this journey of claiming your truth and unlocking the extraordinary advantage that unfurls when you are authentically you. Chapter 1. The Battle Between Expectations and Authenticity. 1. Understanding societal pressures. We all feel it, don't we? That subtle summons, or sometimes a forceful decree, dictating how we ought to be. It's a persistent murmur beneath the surface of our existence, sculpting our decisions, our contemplation, and even our self-perception. This book is a quest for our own authentic voice, our own unvarnished truth, and that pursuit necessitates an initial understanding of the provenance of these myriad external voices. They are known as societal pressures, and their pervasiveness is absolute. Consider this. From our very inception, we are immersed in a deluge of messages defining the virtuous and the reprobate, the righteous and the errant, the conventional and the peculiar. These directives are rarely proclaimed from the rooftops. Instead, they are intricately woven into the very fabric of our daily lives, like an invisible warp and weft guiding our trajectory. Their origins are multifarious, not attributable to a singular entity or faction dictating our course. It is more akin to a grand, intricate tapestry composed of countless disparate threads. One significant thread is our family. Our progenitors, grandparents, aunts, and uncles, each harbors their own conception of how life should unfold, often rooted in their personal histories and the milieu of their formative years. They may advocate for a particular vocational trajectory, a specific age for matrimony, or adherence to certain values. Then there is culture. Every society possesses its own unwritten lexicon of comportment, appearance, and achievement. What is deemed decorous in one locale may be construed as impertinent in another. What is celebrated as aesthetic in one cultural sphere may diverge in another. These cultural paradigms are transmitted through narratives, customs, and the minutiae of daily engagement. And let us not overlook the profound impact of the media. The cinematic narratives we consume, the series we stream, the periodicals we peruse, and particularly our digital interactions, all contribute to a visual lexicon of idealized existence. They present certain archetypes of individuals as felicitous, accomplished, and content, often portraying exceedingly narrow representations. This can engender a sense of inadequacy if we do not conform to these prescribed molds. Even the history we absorb in our academic pursuits can shape expectations. It frequently extols specific accomplishments and modes of living, thereby implicitly delineating what is deemed significant and what is not. Finally, our friends and peers exert a considerable influence, especially during our developmental years. Our innate desire for acceptance and camaraderie compels us to observe and emulate the actions and pronouncements of those around us, thereby shaping our own conduct. These confluence of disparate influences, operating in concert, forge a formidable force that dictates our prescribed roles. They whisper, embrace this, undertake that, eschew the other. It is a subtle, incessant thrum that can become so familiar as to escape conscious notice. Yet, it persists, molding our determinations regarding our vocations, our interpersonal connections, our sartorial choices, our vernacular, and even our self-conception. For instance, there exists an immense impetus to ascend the professional hierarchy, to perpetually be engaged and productive, and to attain a specific echelon of financial prosperity. Deviating from this paradigm can precipitate a feeling of being left behind. Or consider the imperative to be engaged in a romantic partnership, to marry, and subsequently to procreate within a defined temporal framework. If one's life diverges from this prescribed chronology, a sense of deficiency or apprehension regarding personal anomaly may arise. Even in our physical presentation, expectations abound regarding our physiognomy, our corporeal mass, our integument, our tresses, our attire. These pressures are omnipresent, often unspoken, yet their ramifications are profoundly tangible. So, why do these external pronouncements resonate so deeply within us? It stems from a fundamental, profoundly human imperative, the need for belonging. Since the dawn of human civilization, integration into a collective has been paramount for survival. Exclusion from the tribe signified dire peril. Our neural architecture is predisposed to seeking affiliation and validation. We crave acceptance, to be part of something larger than ourselves, to experience security and stability. This is, in itself, a benevolent impulse. It is the bedrock upon which communities and relationships are forged. However, this potent craving for acceptance can also manifest as a double-edged sword when confronted by societal pressures. Our desire for validation often leads us, either implicitly or explicitly, to modify ourselves in accordance with perceived external expectations. We develop an acuity for assessing social dynamics, for discerning the unarticulated rules of engagement within a group, and we subsequently adjust our behavior accordingly. It is akin to the protean capacity of a chameleon, altering its coloration to harmonize with its environment, thereby avoiding undue conspicuousness. This innate drive to conform can impel us to suppress aspects of ourselves that we fear will not be embraced. If we deem our idiosyncratic sense of humor as insufficiently professional for the workplace, we may self-censor. If we apprehend that our authentic sentiments regarding a situation are not palatable to others, we may choose silence. If our outward appearance deviates from prevailing trends, we may endeavor to conceal or transform it. This marks the inception of presenting a meticulously curated version of ourselves, a persona meticulously crafted to elicit approbation and evade the sting of censure. We might feign cheerfulness when experiencing melancholy, assent to an opinion we do not espouse, or feign interest in a subject we find vapid, all in service of maintaining a sense of communal integration. The dread of being an outlier, the one who does not align, can be a potent impetus, compelling us to prioritize assimilation over fidelity to our authentic selves. This brings us to the concept of the performance of normalcy. It transcends mere adherence to a prescribed disposition. It is fundamentally about the semblance of that disposition. We experience an inherent pressure to conceal any attribute that might render us conspicuous, flawed, or aberrant. Recount the notion of wearing an eye patch. For an individual requiring such an aid, there exists a latent pressure to feel embarrassed or to attempt concealment, as if it were a source of ignominy rather than an integral facet of their being. This is the essence of performing normalcy. We learn to stage a spectacle. We may smooth over our rough edges, polish our narratives, and present a rendition of ourselves that we anticipate will be met with nods of affirmation rather than gasps of astonishment or murmurs of disapproval. This can be an arduous undertaking. It is akin to perpetual theatrical performance, ceaselessly striving to recall one's lines and stage directions, apprehensive of misplacing a prop or missing a cue. One may feel compelled to expound upon any deviation from the anticipated trajectory. If pursuing a less conventional professional path, one might feel an incessant need to legitimize their choices. If possessing a visible difference, one may perceive the scrutiny of others and feel constrained to adopt a particular bearing. This unremitting vigilance, this concerted effort to project an aura of normalcy, depletes our vitality. It erects a barrier between our inner consciousness and the external world. We begin to internalize the belief that our authentic selves are, in some fundamental way, insufficient, requiring concealment or rectification. This performance extends beyond external observation. It profoundly influences our self-perception. We commence to police our own thoughts and sentiments, endeavoring to align them with the external script. The pressure is not merely to assume a particular demeanor or appearance, but to experience a specific emotional state, or at least to project such an experience outwardly. It is a ceaseless endeavor to sustain a facade, and it can engender a profound sense of alienation from our genuine experiences. One of the most perplexing aspects of societal pressures is their inherent mutability. The ideal that society promotes is akin to the capricious nature of weather. It is in perpetual flux. What was once considered the zenith of sartorial elegance a quarter century ago may now appear anachronistic. What was once perceived as an audacious professional divergence may now be commonplace. What is lauded in one nation may be disparaged in another. This incessant oscillation can create the sensation of perpetually aiming at a receding target. Consider the evolving paradigms of beauty. They have undergone dramatic transformations throughout history. In certain epochs, a more corpulent physique was deemed aesthetically pleasing, while in others, a slender form was the prevailing ideal. These ideals are not predicated upon any universal verity. They are social constructs that evolve organically, influenced by artistic movements, media trends, and cultural currents. Similarly, conceptions of success have undergone a metamorphosis. For an extended period, it was predominantly defined by material wealth and professional standing. Presently, there is a burgeoning acknowledgement that success can also encompass personal fulfillment, equilibrium between professional and personal life, and the generation of a positive societal impact, even in the absence of substantial financial remuneration. This continuous metamorphosis implies that the precepts by which we were raised may no longer be operative, or they may differ for subsequent generations. It can induce a sense of disorientation, leaving us uncertain as to which standards to aspire. Are we to embody the driven entrepreneur, the nurturing caregiver, the uninhibited artist, or a composite of all these archetypes? Given that these ideals are perpetually shifting and often contradictory, achieving universal adherence becomes an impossibility. This realization can be both disquieting and profoundly liberating. It reveals that these pressures are not intrinsic truths about our destined identities, but rather ephemeral trends and notions adopted by society. They are constructed, not discovered, and consequently, they are amenable to scrutiny and even outright rejection. Perhaps the most formidable dimension of societal pressures is their insidious assimilation, wherein they cease to be perceived as external directives and are instead internalized as our own inner critics. This is the crucible where the true contest for authenticity commences, not merely against external forces, but within the confines of our own psyche. We internalize these expectations and judgments, and they transmute into our own internal dialogue. Envision a constant barrage of messages, explicit or implicit, suggesting that you are intellectually deficient, aesthetically wanting, or professionally inadequate. Persistent exposure to such pronouncements can lead to their acceptance as truth. Those external voices transmute into your own internal monologue. You begin to perceive yourself through the prism of those condemnations. You may experience what is commonly termed imposter syndrome, a pervasive sensation of deception, coupled with an apprehension of imminent exposure. This is your internalized societal pressure whispering, you are fundamentally insufficient. This is where the concept of mind gaslighting emerges. It is as if the external milieu has successfully persuaded you that your own perceptions and sentiments are erroneous. If you feel that you do not conform to a particular mold, and society dictates that this mold represents the sole valid mode of existence, you may begin to question your own subjective experiences. You might conclude, perhaps I'm excessively sensitive, or perhaps my ambition is unwarranted, or perhaps I should simply disregard this feeling. You commence to doubt your own judgment and your own reality. This internal conflict is profoundly debilitating. It fosters a pervasive sense of self-doubt and a persistent feeling of never quite measuring up. We may find ourselves perpetually comparing ourselves to others, invariably falling short because we are juxtaposing our authentic, unvarnished selves against the curated images and perceived triumphs of others, all filtered through the lens of societal expectations. This internal critic can wield immense power, impeding our willingness to undertake risks, to express our genuine selves, and to pursue that which genuinely engenders our happiness. It convinces us that our authentic selves are inherently flawed or unacceptable, and that the sole avenue to acceptance lies in conforming to these internalized external voices. Therefore, let us delve more deeply into the manifestations of these pressures in our quotidian existence. What are some of the most prevalent, often unarticulated, societal expectations with which we might be grappling? Consider the pressure to attain a successful career. This typically connotes a lucrative position, a distinguished title, and a clearly defined trajectory for advancement. If your passion lies in a creative domain that does not offer commensurate financial security, or if you favor a role with reduced responsibility but enhanced personal satisfaction, you may experience persistent pressure to justify your choices. Inquiries such as, When will you secure a legitimate occupation? Or do you not aspire to a promotion? May arise. These questions, even when posed with benign intent, underscore an implicit assumption that your current path is somehow deficient. In social interactions, there exists an expectation to be gregarious, charming, and perpetually engaging. If you are more introverted, or if you are experiencing an off day and do not feel inclined to be the life of the gathering, you may feel judged for being reticent or withdrawn. There is an implicit expectation to maintain an unflagging positivity and agreeability, and if you express dissenting opinions or negative emotions, you may. 2. Finding your true self. What does it truly mean to find your authentic self? For too long, the narrative has been one of discovery, of unearthing a singular, immutable gem buried beneath layers of what we are not. Yet, what if the true self is not a destination to be reached, but a continuous journey to be lived? It is not a static artifact to be unearthed, but a vibrant, evolving entity shaped and refined by every live experience. Envision it not as excavating a statue, but as tending a garden. A garden is not found, it is cultivated, nurtured, and allowed to bloom in its own magnificent, inimitable way. This perspective fundamentally challenges the pervasive notion of a singular, perfect self waiting to be unveiled. Instead, authenticity, as we explore it, lies in embracing the ongoing process of becoming. It is the profound acknowledgement that who you are today may subtly differ from who you were yesterday, and this evolution is not merely acceptable but inherently wonderful. Your core values, your deepest aspirations, your unique spirit, these are the seeds. To cultivate them is to attend to them, to grant them the courage to grow, and to understand that they will adapt and transform in concert with your own unfolding. It is a conscious commitment to present yourself as you are, in this precise moment, rather than a polished effigy from some imagined future. We inhabit a world that frequently resembles a vast, resonating echo chamber. From our earliest moments, we are assailed by a cacophony of voices: parental, pedagogical, social, digital. These voices dictate what is deemed good, right, successful, beautiful, weaving a relentless tapestry of external expectations. This clamor can so effectively drown out the infinitely more subtle resonance of our own inner voice. This quiet whisper represents the nascent stirrings of our authentic self. It is that primal intuition, that gentle knowing, that subtle nudge suggesting, this resonates deeply with me, or this feels incongruous. The paramount challenge is to attenuate the echo chamber sufficiently to discern this delicate whisper. How then do we achieve this attunement? A foundational step lies in identifying your core values. These are the bedrock principles that underpin and direct your life, your non-negotiables, the tenets you uphold even in the face of adversity. Reflect upon moments of profound aliveness, deep contentment, or even intense frustration and anger. What circumstances precipitated these powerful emotional states? Often, our most potent emotions serve as indicators of where our values are either honored or transgressed. A surge of joy in aiding another may signal compassion as a core value. A fiery indignation at injustice might reveal fairness as a deeply held principle. These core values function as an internal compass. When confronted with decisions, particularly those fraught with conflicting external pressures, your values offer direction toward a path aligned with your authentic self. For instance, if creativity is paramount to you, yet your profession demands rote, repetitive tasks, your compass will signal a misalignment. Recognizing this dissonance empowers you to establish boundaries, to articulate, "This does not serve me," not as an act of rebellion, but as a testament to your commitment to your inner truth. To truly apprehend this inner whisper, we must cultivate a heightened degree of self-awareness. Mindfulness and unvarnished self-reflection emerge as potent instruments in this endeavor. Mindfulness is the practice of observing the present moment without judgment. It involves a gentle noticing of your thoughts, emotions, somatic sensations, and surroundings as they arise in the here and now. Through mindful practice, you begin to observe your own reactions. Why did a particular remark sting so acutely? What is it about a specific melody that evokes a sense of serenity? These observations serve as invaluable clues. Journaling, too, offers profound utility. The act of transcribing your thoughts and feelings facilitates their processing and illuminates patterns that might otherwise remain obscured. It is akin to illuminating the hidden alcoves of your own consciousness. By observing yourself without immediate censure, you create the necessary space to discern what genuinely resonates, what ignites your curiosity, and what bestows upon you a sense of peace or exhilaration. This process is not one of creation, but of revelation, for the essence of your true self already resides within. It merely awaits recognition. One of the most formidable obstacles we encounter in embracing our authentic selves is the pervasive fear of imperfection. We harbor anxieties that revealing our true nature will expose our flaws, our vulnerabilities, our perceived shortcomings, inviting harsh judgment. We have been conditioned to equate perfection with ultimate achievement, and any deviation from this ideal with a cause for shame. Yet, a vital truth emerges. What we perceive as imperfections are frequently the very elements that render us uniquely human, and paradoxically, more authentic. Consider this: do you truly admire anyone who appears flawless? Likely not. We forge genuine connections with individuals who are relatable, who acknowledge their struggles, who find humor in their missteps, and who refrain from feigning omniscience. Your distinctive quirks, your past experiences, even those aspects that evoke self-consciousness, these are not impediments to authenticity. They are, in fact, its very building blocks. To embrace what cannot be altered, be it a physical characteristic or a past event, is a profound act of self-acceptance that fuels authentic expression. Authenticity is not the pursuit of flawlessness. It is the embrace of reality, and reality encompasses the acceptance of all facets of yourself, those that inspire pride and those you are still learning to cherish. Let us now delve more deeply into a common predicament. How does one discern between a genuine inner desire and one that has been subtly molded or even implanted by external forces? This is a crucial inquiry, for the echo chamber wields immense persuasive power. It operates like a master forger, capable of producing an impeccable replica of reality, rendering it nearly indistinguishable from the original. The key lies in the feeling and the endurance of the desire. External influences often engender desires that feel urgent yet ephemeral, or they proffer a happiness that is contingent. For instance, a prevailing social media trend might instill a sense of imperative to possess a particular item for perceived happiness or acceptance. The desire, fueled by FOMO, fear of missing out, and the anticipation of external validation, feels potent in the moment. However, upon acquisition, the novelty wanes and the underlying sense of inadequacy may resurface, or one's attention has already shifted to the next trend. This often betrays an externally driven desire. A genuine inner desire, conversely, tends to feel more grounded, more tranquil, and more profoundly satisfying. It may lack the immediate urgency or ostentation of its external counterpart, but it possesses an enduring quality. It is a desire that harmonizes with your core values. If connection is a value you hold dear, a genuine desire might manifest as a wish to spend more meaningful time with loved ones, even at the expense of a seemingly more exciting social engagement. This desire does not typically carry the same intensity of pressure or the specter of missing out. Instead, it cultivates a sense of quiet fulfillment. Another method of differentiation involves posing the question: if no one else were aware or concerned, would I still desire this? For externally influenced desires, the answer is often a resounding no or an uncertain I don't know. The validation of others constitutes a significant component of the motivation. For genuine desires, the answer is typically an affirmative yes, as the impetus originates from within. It pertains to what intrinsically brings you joy, peace, or a sense of purpose, independent of external accolades. Furthermore, consider the energy expenditure. Pursuing externally dictated desires can be profoundly draining, akin to swimming against a relentless current. Conversely, the pursuit of authentic desires, while it may demand effort, often feels invigorating, like flowing with the current, even when the waters are turbulent. This brings us to the potential pitfalls readers may encounter in their quest to find their true self. A primary pitfall is the misconception that the true self is a static, perfected entity. If one subscribes to this belief, the realization that one is not a finished product, or the experience of conflicting emotions and desires, can lead to discouragement. One might conclude, I am not finding my true self because I am still experiencing X, Y, or Z. This can foster self-recrimination rather than self-compassion. The objective is not to unearth a flawless, immutable self, but to engage in the continuous practice of honoring the self that is emerging in each moment. Another pitfall is the conflation of self-indulgence with authenticity. True authenticity does not equate to acting solely on impulse without regard for consequences or others. It involves understanding one's impulses and desires within the broader context of one's values and their impact on the world. For example, if one experiences a potent urge to express anger, authenticity does not mandate unleashing it indiscriminately upon others. It necessitates finding healthy, constructive avenues for processing and communicating that anger, perhaps through journaling, confiding in a trusted confidant, or engaging in physical activity. Genuine authenticity often entails responsible self-expression, not unchecked impulsivity. A third common pitfall is the insidious trap of comparison. As one becomes more attuned to their own desires, it is facile to observe others and contrast their perceived authenticity with one's own. One might encounter an individual who appears effortlessly self-assured and think, why can I not be like that? This is a surefire way to stray from one's path. It is imperative to remember that each individual's journey is unique. The true self is not a competition, it is a deeply personal exploration. Focus on your own trajectory, your own inner whispers, your own unfolding garden. Finally, there is the peril of becoming excessively rigid in the early definition of one's true self. One might identify a select few core values or preferences, and then stubbornly resist any consideration of elements that deviate from that initial framework. However, as we have established, the true self is inherently dynamic. It is perfectly acceptable to discover new interests, alter one's perspective, or evolve one's understanding of what holds significance. Authenticity is not about remaining entrenched in a past iteration of oneself. It is about being present and responsive to the person one is becoming. Navigating these pitfalls demands patience, an openness to being mistaken, and a profound reservoir of self-compassion. It is about learning to trust your inner compass, even when the path is not clearly delineated, and understanding that the journey itself constitutes the most authentic destination. As we embark on the intricate process of disentangling the threads of our true selves from the intricate tapestry of external expectations, and as we refine our ability to distinguish the quiet whisper of our inner voice from the boisterous echo chamber of the world, we achieve a monumental stride. This burgeoning clarity, this nascent self-awareness, lays the fertile ground from which our authentic lives can flourish. Yet, with this growth emerges a new challenge, one that often feels even more formidable. How do we effectively reveal this emerging truth to the world? How do we express who we are when we anticipate the specter of judgment? It is here that the true advantage begins to manifest, as we learn to transmute the inherent discomfort of exposure into a potent source of genuine power. 3. Balancing expectations and reality. Life often feels like navigating a precipice. On one precipice lies the bedrock of societal expectation, the well-trodden path of what others deem us to be. On the other, the exhilarating, albeit sometimes precarious, ascent towards our authentic selves. This chapter chronicles that traversal, the intricate negotiation between imposed ideals and inherent truth. It is not a call to abandon one precipice for another, but an exploration of the profound art of equilibrium, of moving with an unburdened grace. Within this delicate balance lies the singular advantage, the unassailable power of embracing one's own truth, irrespective of how it may astonish those who observe from the familiar ground below. We are immersed in a world saturated with expectations. They murmur from the hearth of family, they clamor from the digital agora of social media, and they reverberate in the solitary chambers of our own consciousness. These expectations dictate our mien, our aspirations, our emotional topography, and even our responses to life's inevitable vicissitudes. From our earliest moments, we are subtly, and at times overtly, steered toward preordained trajectories. We are tutored in the virtues of certain professions, the stability of particular unions, and the qualities that render us palatable or triumphant. These directives are not inherently malevolent. Many spring from a wellspring of benevolent concern for our welfare and the cohesion of the collective. Yet, the insidious danger lies in their gradual infiltration, their assimilation into the very fabric of our daily cognitions, until they masquerade as immutable verities, the singular permissible paradigms of existence. They become the unseen architectural plans of our lives, and any deviation from their blueprint can precipitate a profound sense of failure, not merely against ourselves, but against the watchful eyes of our community. These expectations can manifest as a perpetual, low-grade hum in the background of our existence, a sonic wallpaper to which we grow acclimatized. However, when we endeavor to live with unvarnished authenticity, to articulate our genuine thoughts, sentiments, and intrinsic characteristics, this ambient hum can escalate into a cacophony. If you have ever felt the nascent impulse to adorn yourself differently, to voice an unconventional perspective, or to embark upon a less traveled route, you have likely encountered the palpable pressure of these expectations. It is that pregnant pause, that moment of scrutiny over your chosen attire, your carefully considered words, or your unconventional notion, when an inner interlocutor poses the disquieting query, "What will they think?" That voice is often the resonant echo of collective expectations, the internalized script that delineates the contours of the normal, acceptable, and the behaviors that elicit nods of approval rather than raised eyebrows. This phenomenon extends beyond monumental life decisions, permeating the minutiae of our daily presentation. It is an exercise in curating a persona designed to invite less scrutiny, less interrogation, and a smoother passage through the social landscape. The true crucible emerges when these external impositions directly confront the contours of our authentic selves. The endeavor to contort oneself into an ill-fitting mold engenders an immense friction. Imagine the daily torment of wearing shoes 2 sizes too small, the persistent agony, the awkward gait, the sheer exhaustion. To live in defiance of our intrinsic nature, to strive to meet expectations that diverge from our core identity, is a remarkably analogous experience. It precipitates a profound internal dissonance, manifesting as pervasive anxiety, chronic stress, or an unending state of performance, devoid of true repose. This is the fertile ground upon which people-pleasing takes root. We find ourselves acquiescing to requests we inwardly resist, endorsing opinions we do not share, or suppressing our own desires, solely to avert the discomfiture of disappointing others or attracting unwelcome attention. This relentless pursuit of conformity, of embodying the person others envision, can leave us feeling desiccated and estranged from our own being. It is akin to inhabiting a dwelling exquisitely adorned on its exterior yet utterly vacant and unlived within. The imperative to sustain this artifice can foster a relentless self-recrimination, a perpetual dread of inadvertent disclosure, of revealing the true self, the one we have been conditioned to conceal. This is where the phenomenon of mind gaslighting can assume a disquieting prominence. It is the insidious internal process, instigated by deeply ingrained expectations, that persuades us that our authentic feelings or desires are erroneous, irrational, or unacceptable. We may admonish ourselves, "I should not feel this way," or "This is simply the way it is. I must resign myself to it." We might even begin to question the veracity of our own perceptions and experiences, as they fail to align with the prescribed narrative. This internecine conflict is profoundly debilitating, fostering a fear of vulnerability and the potential exposure of our imperfect, genuine selves. It is akin to shouldering a colossal backpack laden with the opinions and standards of others, its weight threatening to crush our very spirit. Yet, here resides a profoundly empowering truth. Achieving equilibrium between expectation and reality does not necessitate capitulation to every external demand. It is not an invitation to become a pliant doormat for the world's pronouncements. Rather, it is the cultivation of a discerning acuity, a sagacious capacity to differentiate between expectations that genuinely enrich and those that merely constitute ambient noise. This is the domain of strategic acceptance. It entails acknowledging that not every critique or societal convention constitutes an imperative decree. Some expectations are akin to suggestions, others to gentle prompts, and many are simply tangential to the unique trajectory of our journey. The imperative is to master the art of differentiation. This demands the erection of boundaries, the acquisition of the capacity to articulate no when necessary, and the judicious allocation of our vital energies. It is the understanding that we are not obligated to engage in every contention, nor to adopt every viewpoint presented. We possess the inherent power to determine what resonates with our authentic core and what can be gracefully relinquished. Envision this scenario: traversing a bustling marketplace. One is assailed by a multitude of sounds and sights. One does not pause to engage with every hawker proclaiming their wares. One selectively identifies what is needed or what captures the eye. Analogously, within the vibrant marketplace of existence, one can choose which expectations to acknowledge and which to allow to recede into the background. This is not an act of dismissiveness or arrogance. It is an exercise in self-preservation and fidelity to one's inner compass. It is the profound realization that our energy is a precious commodity, best directed towards pursuits that nurture our authentic self, rather than being dissipated in the futile endeavor to satisfy external demands that diverge from our inherent truth. This strategic orientation empowers us to reframe expectations. Instead of perceiving them as immutable mandates to be slavishly followed, we can begin to regard them as valuable data points. They offer insights into how we are perceived, the prevailing social currents, or the general consensus. However, information is distinct from a directive. When we process expectations as data, we can subject them to analysis. We can pose the introspective queries: is this expectation beneficial? Does it align with my core values? Does it foster my personal growth? This analytical approach bestows a sense of agency. It permits us to integrate external feedback without allowing it to supersede our internal compass. It is the understanding that the judgments of others are frequently colored by their own limited experiences, their own preconceived notions, and their own frames of reference. They are not necessarily objective pronouncements on our identity or our designated path. This perspective is intimately linked to the principle of maintaining emotional fortitude, of preventing external pronouncements from unduly influencing our inner state. When judgment is perceived as mere data, its potency is significantly diminished. One can observe it, acknowledge its presence, and then deliberately choose a response, rather than succumbing to an immediate emotional reaction. This is not to advocate for a state of emotional detachment. Rather, it is the development of a protective buffer, an interstitial space between the external observation and our internal processing. It is the profound understanding that while we cannot dictate the expectations or pronouncements of others, we can exert control over how we interpret and respond to them. This is where the unassailable strength of authenticity truly manifests. It is not about achieving immunity to criticism, but about cultivating the resilience to process it constructively, without allowing it to define our essence. To achieve this delicate equilibrium, the most indispensable element is the cultivation of an internal anchor. This anchor represents our profound, unwavering connection to our authentic self. It is forged through self-awareness, self-acceptance, and a robust sense of intrinsic worth, independent of external validation. When equipped with a well-developed internal anchor, one becomes considerably less susceptible to being buffeted by the turbulent tides of external expectations. One possesses an intrinsic knowledge of oneself, of one's foundational principles, and of what genuinely holds significance. This inner knowing serves as an unerring compass, guiding one through the labyrinthine complexities of life. It facilitates the discernment between constructive feedback that can foster growth and judgment that merely seeks to impose another's vision upon us. The development of this internal anchor is not an instantaneous event. It is a continuous practice, an ongoing pilgrimage. It entails an inward gaze, a deep exploration of one's core values, inherent strengths, latent passions, and even one's perceived vulnerabilities. It is the courageous embrace of all facets of the self, not merely those that conform to societal archetypes. When self-acceptance is fully realized, the reliance on external approval diminishes. One becomes less beholden to the opinions of others and more firmly rooted in one's own truth. This self-acceptance is the bedrock of authenticity, the foundational stratum upon which a life that is both genuine and fulfilling can be constructed, a life where the landscape of expectations can be navigated without the risk of self-annihilation. Consider, in this context, the metaphor of branches. If one extends too many branches, too many points of vulnerability, too many avenues for others to seize upon perceived flaws, or deviations from the norm, then their expectations can readily take root and flourish into criticism. Conversely, when a robust internal anchor is firmly established, fewer such branches are extended. One stands resolute in one's authenticity, and while others may still harbor expectations, they find less fertile ground for the cultivation of their judgments. One's inner fortitude becomes one's bulwark, not through aggression, but through a quiet, unshakable presence. Ultimately, the art of balancing expectations with reality is an ongoing dialogue between our internal cosmos and the external world. It is the attentive listening to the subtle whispers of our authentic self and the discerning interpretation of signals emanating from our environment. It demands the courage to recognize when we are ensnared by the temptation of conformity and the wisdom to know when to gently recalibrate ourselves towards our truth. It is the understanding that while the eradication of all expectations is an impossibility, we retain the sovereign right to choose our engagement with them. We can learn to perceive them not as shackles, but as potential stepping stones, or at times, merely as atmospheric phenomena to be observed. By nurturing our internal anchor and treating external expectations as data rather than dictates, we initiate a transformation, converting perpetual friction into a dynamic dance, a choreography in which our authentic self gracefully leads. Having illuminated the delicate interplay between the expected and the actual, the subsequent imperative is to comprehend the means by which this reality can be actively sculpted. This involves the proactive articulation of our authentic selves in a manner that minimizes discord and maximizes mutual understanding, thereby transforming potential conflict into an avenue for genuine connection. 4. Dealing with judgment. The word itself can send a tremor through the gut, tighten the shoulders, and send the mind into a frantic spin. It's that prickle of unease when a gaze lingers too long, a remark lands with a sharp edge, or a question feels like an accusation. In a world that often murmurs, and sometimes bellows, dictates on how we should be, how we should appear, and how we should conduct ourselves, simply inhabiting our own skin can feel like traversing a tightrope. And when we inevitably falter, or when we choose a path that deviates from the expected, judgment frequently descends. Yet, a profound truth, one that eluded me for years and was etched in countless uncomfortable moments, is this: judgment is not the antithesis of authenticity. Rather, it is often its inescapable shadow. The bolder you are in stepping into your own truth, the more you embrace the very essence that makes you uniquely you, the greater the likelihood that some will recoil. And their reaction? That is judgment. It is not a signal of your missteps, it is frequently an affirmation that you are on the right path. Consider this. If you perpetually blend in, always echoing the sentiments you believe others wish to hear, perpetually clad in the same muted hues, you are less likely to attract scrutiny. You are less likely to be challenged. But the instant you decide to don that vibrant, clashing scarf you adore, or to voice an idea that veers toward the unconventional, or simply to navigate life in a manner that refuses to be confined by another's narrow mold, you suddenly become conspicuous. And with visibility comes observation and, invariably, judgment. I recall the period when I began to wear my eye patch with regularity. It was not a sartorial choice born of vanity, but a necessity. Yet, the stares, the hushed whispers, the pointed inquiries, "What happened? Is it serious?" were relentless. It felt as though each excursion outside rendered me an exhibit under a microscope. My initial impulse was to recede, to conceal, to apologize for the very countenance I possessed. But then, a different perspective began to germinate. Why should I apologize for a reality I cannot alter? Why should their discomfort dictate my own? This marked the nascent understanding that the judgment was not a reflection of my wrongness, but rather of my difference, and that this difference unsettled some. The more I embraced it, the more the judgment seemed to dissipate. This is where the true advantage resides. The fundamental tenet of this exploration is that genuine power and liberation arise not from concealing perceived imperfections or striving to embody an alien self, but from wholeheartedly embracing your authentic being. And a significant facet of this journey involves learning to navigate the inevitable judgment that accompanies the courage to be genuine. It is about transforming those moments of unease, not by eradicating the judgment and often insurmountable task, but by recalibrating your response to it. The key to this metamorphosis lies in a potent, yet remarkably straightforward, approach: emotional detachment. When subjected to judgment, your initial inclination may be to feel shame, anger, or a defensive posture. You might experience a hot flush creeping up your neck, your heart might pound, and your mind might commence a barrage of justifications for the perceived error of the judger. This reaction, while instinctive, bestows power upon the accuser. They have witnessed your response, they comprehend that they have breached your defenses, and they possess a point of leverage. It is akin to furnishing them with an instrument of offense. Instead, envision a deliberate step back, however slight, from that immediate tempest of emotion. Conceive of it as observing a scene unfold on a cinematic screen rather than inhabiting the role of the protagonist. When a remark is made, rather than immediately perceiving it as a personal assault, endeavor to view it as an external occurrence. They are articulating something. It may be unjust, it may be ignorant, it may be unkind, but it is their statement, not necessarily an indictment of your truth. This is the domain of the strategy of minimal reactivity. When confronted with judgment, the objective is to provide the other party with the least possible ammunition. If someone poses an intrusive, judgmental question concerning your choices, your appearance, or your life, rather than launching into an elaborate, defensive exposition, opt for a concise, neutral reply. For instance, if questioned about an unconventional attire, rather than enumerating the myriad reasons for your affection and the positive feelings it evokes, which can sometimes invite further scrutiny, a simple "I like it" suffices. Or, if the context permits and a modicum of playful detachment is felt, one might even employ the now iconic "just 'cause." Why did you do that? Just 'cause. It sounds almost childlike, does it not? Yet, within this simplicity lies a profound wisdom. Just 'cause is an assertion of personal sovereignty. It declares, my motivations are my own, and I am not beholden to divulge them to you. It is not impolite, it is an establishment of boundary. It is a subtle declaration. This is my decision, and it holds validity for me. It offers no branches for them to grasp. You understand how in a confrontation, if someone attempts to push you, you do not respond with greater force, do you? You might shift your stance or simply remain steadfast. Just 'cause is akin to standing firm within your own space. It denies them the opportunity to contest your reasoning, for you have not presented any. Another remarkably potent instrument in your repertoire is humor. Unfeigned laughter, particularly self-directed amusement, can utterly disarm judgment. When you can find mirth in the situation, or even in yourself with gentle kindness, you signal that you are not a victim. You are in command. If someone offers a pointed, slightly absurd observation, and you can genuinely chuckle at its incongruity, you fundamentally alter the power dynamic. They may have intended to provoke a negative reaction, but instead, you have offered them laughter. It is unexpected, and it is profoundly liberating. Recall those instances where you have witnessed someone parry a difficult question or a barbed remark with a witty, lighthearted rejoinder. It does not imply an absence of feeling, but rather a deliberate choice in their response. They are choosing not to allow another's negativity to contaminate their own spirit. Self-amusement is paramount here. It is about discovering the humor in your own circumstances, in your own eccentricities, and in the general caprice of existence. When you can perceive the amusing facet, judgment loses its potency. It transforms from a threat into a mere observation. Now, let us delve more deeply into the internal psychological shift required to transition from feeling wounded by judgment to perceiving it as an external phenomenon. This transcends mere the acquisition of clever phrases. It involves a fundamental reorientation of your brain's response. When we are judged, particularly for something we perceive as integral to our identity, it taps into a deep-seated human yearning for acceptance. Our brains are wired to seek belonging. Consequently, when judgment arrives, it can feel like a threat to that very belonging. The shift occurs when we begin to comprehend that genuine belonging originates from within rather than from the approbation of others. This necessitates the cultivation of a robust sense of internal security. Instead of soliciting validation from the external world, we commence its construction from the interior. When external judgment arises, rather than perceiving it as a verdict on your intrinsic worth, you can begin to regard it as a test of your own fortitude. Does this criticism unsettle me? Does it foster doubt regarding my identity? If the answer is no, or if the disruption is minimal and fleeting, then you have achieved success. You have forged a resilience that external opinions cannot readily erode. This is where the concept of framing gains significance, though not in a manipulative sense. It pertains to how you internally frame the judgment. Is it a personal assault, or is it a projection from another? Frequently, the judgment we receive reveals more about the individual rendering it than it does about ourselves. If someone is intensely critical of your unconventional sartorial choices, it may stem from their own life feeling excessively predictable, and your decisions serve as a reminder of the freedom they perceive themselves to lack. They might be projecting their own unfulfilled desires or anxieties onto you. Consider those individuals who test your levels of security. They might offer a comment, pose a pointed question, or provide unsolicited counsel, not necessarily out of animosity, but to gauge your reaction. They may be seeking validation for themselves, or perhaps they are simply curious about the operational mechanics of someone so at ease in their own skin. If you respond with defensiveness or palpable distress, you have corroborated their perceived notion that you are easily perturbed. But if you reply with composure, a touch of humor, or that simple just 'cause, you have demonstrated a different form of strength. You have evinced that your inner world is not contingent upon their approval. This brings us to a crucial juncture. How can these strategies, such as minimal response and humor, be implemented in situations where the judgment is profoundly personal or arises from a place of genuine misunderstanding rather than mere casual criticism? This is where nuance becomes imperative. Just 'cause may not be a suitable response if a loved one is expressing sincere concern, even if it feels like judgment. In such circumstances, the objective shifts from deflection to comprehension, yet still grounded in authenticity. If a friend or family member conveys apprehension about a decision you have made and it feels judgmental, pause. Take a breath. Is there a kernel of truth within their concern, even if their delivery is awkward? Are they misinterpreting your intentions? Instead of immediately bristling, you might attempt to articulate your position calmly. I understand you were concerned about X. My intention was Y. This is why I believe it is the right choice for me at this moment. This is not about soliciting their assent, but about offering them understanding while steadfastly upholding your authentic choice. It is about communicating your truth without necessitating their validation. Humor, too, requires judicious application. If someone is genuinely hurt or distressed, a flippant jest might be poorly received. However, even in serious circumstances, a shared moment of levity can sometimes diffuse tension and facilitate more candid communication. It is about discerning the atmosphere and your own internal compass. The objective is not to perform as a stand-up comedian, but to utilize lightness as a means to preserve your own inner equilibrium and demonstrate that you are not easily overwhelmed by negativity. So, at what point does detachment risk morphing into indifference or avoidance? This is a vital consideration for maintaining healthy relationships and personal advancement. True detachment, as we are exploring it, is not about suppressing your emotions or becoming unfeeling. It is about managing your emotional response to external stimuli so that it does not dictate your actions. It is about recognizing that while you cannot control what others say or do, you can control how you interpret and react to it. Indifference, conversely, can be a form of emotional shutdown. It is when you cease to care about anything or anyone, which is neither healthy nor authentic. Avoidance is when you actively steer clear of situations or individuals that might provoke judgment, thereby inhibiting your ability to live fully and authentically. The distinction lies in intention and outcome. Detachment, when practiced appropriately, fosters inner resilience and the liberty to express oneself. Indifference leads to apathy, and avoidance leads to a constricted existence. To ensure you are navigating judgment constructively, consistently engage in self-reflection. Are you capable of interacting with others, even when they present challenges? Do you remain open to connection and understanding, even if you are not seeking external validation? Are you able to learn and evolve from feedback, even if it is imperfectly delivered? If your answers are affirmative, your detachment is likely serving you well. If you find yourself becoming cynical, withdrawing from people, or feeling emotionally blunted, it may be time to reassess your approach. It is about striking that delicate equilibrium between safeguarding your inner world and remaining receptive to the richness of human connection. The practice of owning your narrative, of employing responses like just cause, of incorporating humor, and of cultivating emotional detachment are not about transforming into unfeeling automatons. They are about becoming masters of your own internal domain. They are about reclaiming your power from the external realm and firmly reasserting its rightful place within you. When you are secure in your 5. Using humor and resilience, sometimes the world hurls more than just the elements at us. It showers us with opinions, scrutinizing stares, and insidious whispers. These are the very judgments we've discussed, the ones that attempt to dictate who we ought to be, or worse, who we are deemed unworthy of becoming. It's an easy descent into feeling insignificant, like an insect pinned beneath a lens. Yet, a formidable weapon, a potent catalyst for transformation, lies within our grasp, humor. And hand in hand with it, an unyielding inner fortitude we recognize as resilience. Consider humor your vanguard, your initial bulwark, but also your strategic retake of the battlefield. When a barb is launched with the intent to wound, and you manage to unearth a sliver of amusement from it, a remarkable alchemy occurs. The sting dissipates. It's akin to someone thrusting a sharp stick at you, and instead of recoiling in pain, you offer a quiet chuckle. That chuckle resounds, a clear and resounding declaration that their instrument of malice has lost its efficacy. Their words have been disarmed. This is not an invitation to sarcasm or mockery, for that is a different species of humor, one that erects barriers. This is about genuine, unburdened laughter, the effervescent kind that surfaces from the depths of your being when you perceive the inherent absurdity in a situation, even when that situation is a judgment. When you can find mirth in that which is wielded against you, you are not merely parrying, you are asserting your dominion. You are articulating, I acknowledge your attempt, and in fact, it's rather amusing how much weight you assign to this one trifling matter. This self-directed amusement is a profound act of self-validation. It signifies that you are no longer adrift, anxiously awaiting external affirmation. You are bestowing upon yourself the assurance of your own worth, here and now, even in the face of that which distinguishes you. This is the crucible of authenticity, embracing your truth and discovering solace within it, irrespective of others' comprehension. Humor also serves as an artful conduit for communication, bypassing the need for protracted disputes. Envision a query regarding your daily adornment of an unconventional scarf. Rather than adopting a defensive posture, a smile can accompany the response. This scarf is my cape of invincibility. It bestows upon me the power to disregard nonsensical inquiries. It is light, playful, and gently signals that this particular topic is not open for debate. It erects a boundary with a smile rather than a furrowed brow. It radiates an aura of self-assurance and ease, a truly formidable quality. However, humor alone may not always suffice, particularly when judgments are relentless or deeply ingrained. This is where resilience emerges. Resilience is the bedrock of your inner being, an unshakable core. It is the capacity to rebound when life or its inhabitants have knocked you down. A cornerstone of cultivating this resilience is emotional detachment. This does not connote coldness or indifference. Rather, it is the learned art of preventing every utterance and judgment from infiltrating your heart and diminishing your self-worth. It is the deliberate creation of a buffer between an external comment and your internal reaction. Within this interstitial space, you possess the agency to choose your response, rather than being swept away by hurt or anger. Among the most elegantly effective methods for fostering this detachment is what I term the just 'cause strategy. It is a minimalist defense. When met with judgment, interrogation, or dissection, instead of offering a lengthy justification or a point of contention, provide a simple, unembellished statement. Consider phrases such as "just because," or "that's simply how I prefer it," or "that's not a matter for discussion." Its efficacy lies in its denial of the branches the interrogator seeks. They yearn to delve, to unearth vulnerabilities, to engage in debate. By offering no purchase, their judgment hangs suspended, unsupported, and frequently loses its momentum. It is as if they are attempting to ignite a fire, but you have removed all the tinder. This is not rudeness. It is a strategic refusal to engage in an unnecessary conflict. The practice of these responses, and the cultivation of an inner immunity to judgment, is paramount. Think of it as training for an arduous race. One does not simply arrive and attempt the full distance. Training and preparation are essential. The same applies to confronting judgment. Before venturing into circumstances ripe with potential criticism or questioning, pause. Visualize someone articulating the very words you fear. How would that feel? Now, imagine finding a flicker of humor within it. Envision delivering "just 'cause" with a serene smile. Rehearsing these mental tableaux fortifies your inner resolve. It is akin to bolstering your immune system against negativity. It may seem counterintuitive, but the more authentically you present yourself, the more likely you are to attract scrutiny. This is because you are no longer conforming to societal archetypes. You are manifesting your true self, a prospect that can unsettle those accustomed to predictable patterns. Here, resilience is indispensable. You must grasp that judgment often reveals more about the judger than about you. Their disquiet stems from their own deeply held beliefs, their own anxieties, their own need for order. When this perspective is achieved, their judgment loses its personal sting. It becomes an observation of their internal world, not a verdict on yours. This leads us to the finesse of rolling with it. It is the act of embracing what lies beyond your control and discovering tranquility, even elation, within it. If there is an aspect of yourself that elicits attention or judgment, and it is not something you can or wish to alter, resistance only amplifies suffering. Resistance, as the adage goes, is suffering. Inversely, acceptance, particularly when interwoven with humor, can unlock a profound sense of liberation. It is akin to finally relinquishing a burdensome satchel you have been struggling to carry. By embracing your distinctive attributes, the very qualities that may have rendered you a target, you can begin to reinterpret them. Rather than perceiving them as deficiencies, you can begin to view them as integral components of your unique narrative, your individual imprint. This is not about denying their existence or their capacity to draw attention. It is about claiming that attention and demonstrating that these singular facets of your being are not liabilities, but rather sources of strength, individuality, or even an undue advantage. Consider an individual with a profoundly distinctive vocal cadence. Instead of striving for conventional speech, they lean into it, perhaps even transforming it into a signature charm or a recognizable brand. They own their story. This is where the transition occurs, from being perceived as an object of pity to one of admiration. It is about possessing that badass factor. When you navigate judgment with humor and resilience, when you assert your truth with unwavering confidence, people no longer see someone to be pitied. They see a figure of strength, of courage, someone unapologetically themselves. They may have initially perceived a difference, a perceived imperfection, something that made you stand out in a way that caused them discomfort. But your response, your capacity for laughter, your steadfastness, your self-possession, reconfigures that perception. Suddenly, that divergence is not a deficit. It is a testament to your character, your bravery, and your authenticity. Let us delve into the analytical questions that may arise. How can one truly discern the distinction between genuine, disarming humor and that which is merely sarcasm or a defensive stratagem? Authentic humor, the kind that truly disarms, emanates from a place of inner security. It is light, often gently self-deprecating, and it avoids disparaging others. It is akin to a warm handshake, fostering connection, or at least easing tension. Sarcasm, conversely, often carries a sharp edge. While it can be witty, it frequently harbors an implicit jab, a means of conveying negativity cloaked as jest. It can alienate individuals and widen divides. The crucial element is the intention and the residual feeling it engenders. Genuine humor leaves individuals feeling lighter, more connected, or at least less threatened. Sarcasm can leave them feeling attacked or bewildered. For authenticity, we seek the warm handshake, not the pointed barb. And what of those minimalist rejoinders, such as just 'cause? How does one practice them without appearing aggressive or dismissive? The key lies entirely in the delivery. Imagine someone inquiring why you chose to wear a vibrant yellow shirt on a drab, gray day. Instead of a curt "because I wanted to," which can sound abrupt, attempt it with a subtle smile, a relaxed demeanor, and perhaps a glint in your eye. "Oh, just because," you might articulate, with a light intonation. The smile and the tone are indispensable. They signal that you are not engaging in confrontation, but rather that you are simply declining to offer them an opening for further interrogation. It is about serene self-possession. It is about conveying, "This is my prerogative, and I require neither your approval nor your analysis." Practicing this in low-stakes scenarios, perhaps with a confidant or before a mirror, can help you strike the right equilibrium. Finally, beyond mere non-reaction, what are the true mental and emotional techniques for forging the resilience necessary to consistently deploy humor and detachment against judgment? It commences with self-awareness. Ascertain what provokes you. What sorts of remarks or situations render you most vulnerable? Once your weak points are identified, you can prepare. This preparation entails several components. Firstly, affirmations. The repeated recitation of positive self-declarations, such as "I am worthy" or "my truth is valid," can establish a robust internal foundation. Secondly, mindfulness. The practice of observing one's thoughts and emotions without judgment facilitates the recognition that a judgmental thought is merely a transient idea, not an immutable fact. You can witness the judgmental thought drift by much like a cloud. Thirdly, reframing. Actively seek the positive or the humorous in challenging circumstances. If an individual offers a critical observation about your appearance, rather than dwelling on the censure, ask yourself, "What is amusing about this?" Or, "How can I leverage this to showcase my strength?" Fourthly, cultivating your support network. Surround yourself with individuals who embrace and celebrate your authenticity. Their positive regard can serve as a potent shield against external judgment. And lastly, practice, practice, practice. The more consciously you opt for humor and detachment, the more innate it will become. It is a muscle that is strengthened through consistent exertion. While humor and resilience offer potent internal defenses against the arrows of judgment, the external terrain of societal expectations frequently necessitates a more deliberate approach to communication. Understanding how to strategically shape your narrative and articulate your authentic self, even when it challenges established norms, becomes the subsequent critical juncture in reclaiming your power. Chapter 2. Embracing your true self. 1. Accepting who you are. We pour so much of our vital energy into contorting ourselves into the shape of who we believe we ought to be, that we often overlook the profound power that lies dormant within us, waiting for the simple affirmation of who we truly are. It sounds disarmingly simple, does it not? To merely accept oneself. Yet, for a great many of us, This is arguably the most arduous undertaking we will ever confront. It is akin to attempting to stand erect after a protracted period of forced stooping. Consider this deeply. From our earliest years, we are inundated with idealized portrayals of what constitutes good or right. We witness the impossibly flawless smiles gracing magazine covers, we observe the seemingly effortless social navigation of popular peers, and we behold the trajectory of successful individuals who appear to glide through life with an almost ethereal grace. It becomes insidiously easy to internalize the belief that we are, in some fundamental way, falling short. Perhaps it is the cadence of our speech, a mark upon our skin, or a passion that deviates from the prevailing trends. Whatever the perceived deficiency, we begin to conceal it, to meticulously smooth over its edges, to feign its non-existence. We erect formidable walls around these aspects of ourselves, clinging to the hope that they will pass unnoticed. Yet, here lies a curious paradox. The more assiduously we attempt to conceal something, the more magnified and formidable it becomes within the confines of our own minds. It resembles an unopened box, brimming with imagined horrors. The sheer dread of what might reside within paralyzes us, preventing us from ever daring to lift the lid. This relentless resistance, this ceaseless internal skirmish to banish parts of our very being, is an immense drain on our spirit. It carves a profound chasm between the individual we authentically are and the facade we strive to project. And this very gulf, this internal dissonance, paradoxically renders us more susceptible to external scrutiny. When we are engaged in a war with ourselves, any comment from the outside world can land with the devastating force of a direct blow, striking a raw, exposed nerve. True acceptance, conversely, is akin to stepping forth from behind that self-imposed barricade. When you make the conscious decision to peer into that box, to acknowledge the very aspect of yourself that you have harbored such profound fear towards, a remarkable metamorphosis occurs. Its power begins to wane. The fear may not dissipate instantaneously, but it commences its gradual retreat. You begin to apprehend that what you have been so desperately concealing was not some monstrous entity, but simply a facet of your own being, perhaps a challenging one, but a facet nonetheless. By choosing to embrace it, you disarm its capacity to inflict harm. It ceases to be a clandestine weapon that an adversary might wield against you. It simply becomes you. And in that realization lies an extraordinary liberation. We are ceaselessly assailed by images of an ideal self, a being perpetually confident, invariably successful, eternally beautiful, and unfailingly joyous. This idealized construct is frequently a mere mirage, a carefully constructed artifice woven from the expectations of others and the pervasive pressures of society. It represents an individual who never errs, who always articulates the perfect sentiment, and who seamlessly integrates into every conceivable situation. The inherent flaw in this pursuit is its fundamental unrealism. It is a performance, and the endeavor to embody it is akin to trying to capture mist. This ceaseless striving breeds a pervasive sense of inadequacy, a constant undercurrent of impending exposure. We spend our lives chasing this phantom, and in doing so, we tragically deny the inherent beauty and intrinsic worth of the person we are right here and now. Authentic self-acceptance necessitates the relinquishing of this unattainable ideal. It is the profound understanding that our value is not contingent upon achieving some state of unblemished perfection. It is the recognition and cherishing of who we are in this present moment, with all our eccentricities, our rough edges, and our ongoing processes of learning. This is not an invitation to cease growing, but rather an encouragement to grow from a wellspring of self-love, not from the barren wasteland of self-recrimination. Visualize a meticulously unique, handcrafted sculpture. It may bear minor nicks and imperfections, but these are precisely what imbue it with character, what narrate its story. The ideal self is akin to a mass-produced figurine, uniformly smooth and identical, utterly devoid of genuine personality. We are the unique sculpture, and our perceived imperfections are integral components of our masterpiece. This leads us directly to the persistent inner monologue, that ceaseless stream of thoughts, opinions, and critiques that reverberates within us. How frequently do we utter sentiments to ourselves that we would never dare direct towards a cherished friend? We label ourselves as foolish, as clumsy, as unattractive, as failures. This internal discourse holds immense power, and it is often the most vocal and unsparing critic we encounter. The judgments we perceive from the external world, the suppressed snickers, the judgmental glances, the dismissive remarks, frequently serve only to amplify the echoes of our own inner accuser. We have already convinced ourselves of our inherent insufficiency, and when another voice confirms this belief, it resonates with a devastatingly potent truth. The cultivation of a more harmonious internal dialogue is an indispensable initial stride towards embracing our authentic selves. It demands a conscious awareness of the thoughts that course through our minds. When you detect yourself engaging in negative self-talk, pause. Inquire, is this thought verifiably true? Is it constructive? Would I ever articulate this to someone I hold dear? More often than not, the answer will be a resounding no. Subsequently, endeavor to reframe the thought. Instead of I am so socially awkward, you might opt for I am still developing my skills in navigating social interactions, and that is perfectly acceptable. This is not an endorsement of pretense or denial, but rather a conscious shift from a tone of harsh judgment to one of gentle understanding and compassion. This marks the nascent stage of fostering a supportive internal relationship, one robust enough to withstand the inevitable buffets of the external world. We have been conditioned to perceive flaws as sources of shame, as inherent defects that diminish our worth. But what if we were to adopt a different perspective? What if we came to understand that these so-called imperfections are not indicators of weakness, but are, in fact, essential elements that define our humanity and our individuality? Reflect upon the individuals you most deeply admire. Are they flawlessly polished statues, or are they people who have navigated adversity, who have openly shared their struggles, and who have emerged with a distinct resilience and profound wisdom? It is frequently the messy, untidy aspects of existence, the moments of vulnerability, and the hard-won lessons gleaned from missteps that render us relatable and strong. Embracing imperfection signifies the recognition that wholeness is a far more valuable pursuit than flawlessness. It entails the acceptance that we will falter, that we will err, and that moments of doubt are an inevitable part of the human experience. These are not indices of failure, they are simply integral components of the human journey. True strength is not derived from an absence of falls, but from the courage to rise again, to extract wisdom from the experience, and to persevere, perhaps emerging a little wiser and considerably more understanding of ourselves and those around us. When we can accept our own imperfections with grace, we simultaneously cultivate a greater capacity for leniency towards others, thereby fostering deeper and more meaningful connections. This journey of self-acceptance is, at its core, an act of profound bravery. It demands courage to confront oneself with unvarnished honesty, eschewing the comforting shields of denial and self-deception. It necessitates a willingness to be vulnerable, to peel back the layers of artifice and reveal the authentic self. This process is rarely comfortable. It entails acknowledging those aspects of ourselves that we may find unappealing, the errors we have committed, or the emotions we have attempted to suppress. However, it is within this courageous act of honest self-examination, followed by the embrace of self-compassion, that genuine strength begins to unfurl. When you can regard yourself, with all your imperfections, and affirm, "This is me, and I embrace this," you are constructing an unshakable foundation of resilience. This internal acceptance transforms into a formidable bulwark against external judgment. It is akin to possessing an unyielding inner core capable of weathering any storm. You are no longer beholden to the validation of others for your sense of self-worth, for you have cultivated that validation from within. This is not an expression of arrogance. It is the manifestation of a quiet, steadfast confidence born from the profound knowledge and ownership of your truth. It is the bedrock upon which we can subsequently build the skills necessary to navigate the world, not through concealment, but by standing tall in our own skin. So, how do we actively engage in this process? Let us first consider some of the internal impediments. One of the most significant is the very fear of judgment itself. We expend so much energy worrying about the perceptions of others should they witness our true selves that we resolutely keep them hidden. This apprehension is frequently exacerbated by past experiences, instances where we were ridiculed, criticized, or rejected for our distinctiveness. Such encounters can leave indelible scars, fostering the deeply ingrained belief that embracing our authentic selves is inherently perilous. Another formidable barrier can be internalized beliefs. Perhaps, as a child, you were perpetually informed that you were too boisterous, too reserved, excessively sensitive, or insufficiently intelligent. These pronouncements can become so deeply entrenched that we begin to internalize them as absolute truths, irrespective of their factual basis. To commence the process of identifying these barriers, begin by attuning yourself to your emotional responses. When do you experience the most profound discomfort? What situations evoke a desire to withdraw or conceal yourself? What thoughts surface when you feel self-conscious? Journaling can prove to be an exceptionally valuable tool in this endeavor. Document these moments, these thoughts, and the accompanying emotions. Endeavor to trace their origins. When did you first experience this particular feeling? Is there a specific memory intrinsically linked to it? Once you begin to discern these patterns, you can initiate the process of challenging them. For instance, if you find yourself thinking, "I cannot contribute to meetings because everyone will deem me unintelligent," pause and interrogate yourself, is this genuinely factual? Has anyone ever explicitly declared me unintelligent when I have spoken up? Or am I merely extrapolating this assumption based on a past experience or a generalized fear? Genuine self-acceptance transcends the mere sensation of feeling good about oneself. It is intrinsically linked to the manner in which we conduct ourselves when faced with adversity. It encompasses our internal response to external criticism and our capacity to recover from setbacks. Envision an individual whom you perceive as genuinely self-accepting. They might receive feedback suggesting their work is substandard. Rather than succumbing to despair, they might acknowledge the critique, objectively assess its validity, and then, without allowing it to define their inherent worth, decide to refine the work or proceed to the subsequent project. They do not internalize the criticism as irrefutable proof of their fundamental inadequacy. They perceive it as information pertaining to a specific output, rather than a definitive indictment of their entire being. When confronted with personal setbacks, perhaps the dissolution of a relationship, the forfeiture of a career opportunity, or the emergence of a health concern, self-acceptance signifies the eschewing of self-blame and the prevention of descent into despair. It entails acknowledging the pain and difficulty, extending compassion to oneself, and steadfastly remembering one's inherent value. It is the internal declaration, "This is arduous, and I am hurting, yet I remain a person of intrinsic worth." This internal fortitude empowers you to glean lessons from the experience and forge a path forward, rather than becoming ensnared in a cycle of self-condemnation. It represents the crucial distinction between asserting, "This failure unequivocally proves I am a failure," and articulating, "This was a challenging experience, and I have gained significant insights from it. I will leverage this learning to excel in future endeavors." The journey toward embracing one's authentic self is not a finite destination, but a continuous practice. It is a steadfast commitment to present oneself, day after day, with unwavering kindness and profound honesty. It is the profound understanding that your authenticity is not a deficit, but rather your most potent asset. It is the fertile ground from which genuine confidence and enduring freedom can organically blossom. Once we embark upon the cultivation of this internal landscape of self-acceptance, we establish a critical foundation. However, the embrace of our true selves is not solely an introspective pursuit. It profoundly influences how we engage with the world and the judgments it invariably presents. The subsequent imperative is to learn to actively manage that external cacophony, transforming it from a source of pain into a catalyst for our own evolution and empowerment. 2. Turning flaws into strengths. We often carry within us perceived imperfections, like closely guarded secrets we feel shame for. Perhaps it's a physical mark, a scar or a birthmark, or a behavioral trait, such as shyness or a tendency to speak out of turn. We tend to categorize these as flaws, as deficiencies that render us lesser than others or less than we ought to be. Our instinct is to conceal them, to smooth over their presence, to feign their absence. But what if these very qualities, these so-called flaws, are in fact the keys to unlocking our singular power? Let us first dissect the notion of a flaw. Where does this concept truly originate? Consider this. What one individual deems a flaw, another might perceive as intriguing or even beautiful. Society, in its subtle way, constructs unspoken rules governing what is considered normal or acceptable. It resembles a game with ever-shifting parameters, and failure to adhere perfectly can breed a sense of inadequacy. This pressure can lead us to believe that any deviation from the norm is inherently negative. If everyone around you favors a particular style of footwear, and your preference diverges significantly, it is easy to conclude that your choice is erroneous, a defect in your taste. The same logic applies to our manner of speech, our emotional responses, and even our physical attributes. We internalize these judgments and they begin to feel like an intrinsic truth. Yet, more often than not, what society labels as a flaw is merely a different path, a unique mode of existence that defies conventional molds. It is not a failing, it is simply different. And in a world that frequently rewards conformity, being different can feel like a disadvantage. Consider the experience of someone who wears an eye patch. For a considerable period, the inclination might be to make it vanish, to opt for a prosthetic eye or a patch designed for concealment, thereby avoiding undue attention. The individual might perceive this as a flaw, a glaring imperfection that draws unwanted scrutiny. They might avoid eye contact, dress in ways that minimize their presence, and generally strive to diminish its significance. This is a natural human reaction when we feel judged. We attempt to disappear. We construct a carefully curated persona, a version of ourselves that we believe will be more readily accepted, less susceptible to criticism. However, this act of concealment, this perpetual effort to present a false front, is profoundly exhausting. It drains our energy and infringes upon our freedom. It prevents us from being truly present in our own lives, as we are consumed with managing external perceptions. This is the antithesis of authenticity. Authenticity, as we are exploring it, is about presenting yourself as you are, including those aspects you have been conditioned to hide. Now, what transpires when we cease to contend with those elements we cannot readily alter? What if, instead of attempting to conceal the eye patch, we chose to embrace it? This is not about pretending it does not exist, but about accepting it as an integral part of yourself. This acceptance is the initial, critical step. When something about us proves recalcitrant to change, resistance only amplifies our suffering. It is akin to attempting to dam a river with one's bare hands. It is an impossible, energy-sapping endeavor. True strength emerges not from altering the unalterable, but from accepting it and learning to coexist with it, even to flourish alongside it. This acceptance does not imply a cessation of self-improvement or personal growth in other domains. It signifies an acknowledgement that certain aspects of your reality are simply intrinsic to your unique composition. Instead of viewing this immutable trait as an impediment, you begin to perceive it as a foundation. It is the ground upon which you stand. When you cease expending energy on its eradication, you liberate that energy for the construction of something new. This is where the magic of leveraging attention comes into play. Reflect again on the eye patch. If it is no longer a source of shame, but something you own, it transforms into a focal point. It is distinctive. It is memorable. It can serve as a catalyst for conversation. Rather than fearing the attention it garners, you can learn to harness it. This is what we mean by converting a flaw into an advantage. It involves recognizing that what distinguishes you is also what makes you stand out. In a world teeming with individuals, standing out is often a desirable outcome. It is what draws positive notice. People may inquire about the eye patch, and rather than feeling awkward, you can respond with assurance, perhaps even a touch of wit. This simple act of owning your distinctiveness can redefine how others perceive you, and more importantly, how you perceive yourself. This attention, when embraced, can become an unfair advantage. It is an inherent differentiator that sets you apart from the masses, rendering you more interesting, more intriguing, and more authentic. Consider this. The very things about which we feel most insecure are often those that pique curiosity. The individual who stutters may, out of necessity, cultivate a more deliberate and thoughtful mode of speech, selecting their words with meticulous care. The person who feels socially awkward might develop into a keen observer, gaining a profound understanding of human dynamics. These are not flaws, they are unique perspectives forged through navigating the world differently. When we dare to be vulnerable about these aspects, to reveal our real, flawed, and insecure human self, we disarm judgment. Instead of finding fault, people often discover a point of connection. Vulnerability, when exhibited with courage, elicits empathy. It communicates to others that imperfection is acceptable. And when this vulnerability is coupled with resilience, the capacity to rebound and persevere, it generates a formidable force. It fosters trust and deepens relationships. People are drawn to authenticity, to the unvarnished truth of another human being. This leads us to the extraordinary power of reframing and self-amusement. Our internal monologue, the narrative we construct about ourselves, is paramount. If you believe your eye patch renders you peculiar, then so it will be. But if you begin to view it as an interesting element of your story, perhaps even a symbol of your resilience, your perspective will shift. Humor is a remarkable instrument in this regard. The ability to laugh at oneself, to find amusement in situations that once induced cringing, strips these perceived flaws of their potency. It is akin to blunting a sharp object. It can no longer inflict harm. The transcript mentions a strategy of simply saying just 'cause. When questioned about a choice or a trait, responding with just 'cause effectively denies the interrogator the opportunity to dissect your reasoning. It is a playful, almost childlike deflection that conveys, "This is who I am. I do not require your justification." This is not an act of rudeness. It is about reclaiming your autonomy and refusing to cede power over your choices and your identity to others. It is about discovering joy and confidence in your own unique way of being. Let us delve deeper into the process of identifying and challenging those deeply ingrained beliefs that define what constitutes a flaw. This is where the substantive work commences, and it necessitates a conscious endeavor to question the messages we have absorbed. Reflect upon your childhood. What were you taught to value? Which behaviors were lauded and which were discouraged? Were you instructed to remain quiet, to avoid drawing attention to yourself? Were you commended for neatness and orderliness, or for achieving perfect academic results? These messages, often conveyed with benevolent intent by parents, educators, or even peers, can shape our self-perception for years. Societal norms also exert a considerable influence. Magazines, television, social media, they all inundate us with images of what is deemed desirable, successful, and normal. If you do not conform to that paradigm, it is easy to internalize the notion that you are somehow deficient. To challenge these beliefs, begin by observing your own thoughts. When you find yourself thinking "I am so awkward" or "this scar makes me look ugly," pause. Ask yourself, who imparted this belief to me? Is this genuinely true? Or is it merely something I have been told to accept? Endeavor to separate your own authentic feelings from the echoes of external judgment. At times, it proves beneficial to record these thoughts. Witnessing them on paper can diminish their perceived power, making them more amenable to examination and deconstruction. You may discover that the flaw you have been agonizing over is something that most people do not even notice. Or if they do not ascribe the same negative connotation to it as you do. It is analogous to viewing a smudge on a window pane from the interior versus the exterior. From one perspective, it is a significant distraction. From the other, it is barely discernible. Your internal narrative represents that interior perspective. Another potent technique involves actively seeking out examples that contradict the flaw narrative. If you believe that being quiet is a flaw, seek out examples of successful and admired individuals who are naturally introverted. If you believe a certain physical characteristic is unattractive, find people who have made that trait their signature. This is not about negating your own feelings. but about broadening your perspective and demonstrating to yourself that there are myriad ways to be valuable and beautiful. It is about accumulating evidence that challenges your established programming. You can also engage in a form of exposure therapy in a safe environment. If you are hesitant to speak in meetings, make it a point to contribute a brief comment each time. If you dislike your laugh, try to laugh more freely in private settings. Each small step cultivates confidence and weakens the grip of the flaw belief. Now, let us address the practical, actionable steps a reader can take to transition from resisting or concealing a perceived flaw to actively embracing and even leveraging it, particularly when confronted with persistent external judgment. This represents the shift from problem identification to solution implementation. The initial step is conscious acceptance. This involves acknowledging the trait or characteristic without judgment. It is not necessarily about liking it, but about ceasing the internal struggle against it. For our eye patch wearer, this might manifest as looking in the mirror and stating, "Okay, this is part of me. Right now, I have an eye patch." This simple act of non-resistance is profoundly liberating. Next, we engage in reframing the narrative. Instead of "this eye patch makes me look strange," try "this eye patch makes me unique and memorable." If you have always felt insecure about your propensity for overthinking, reframe it as being thoughtful, analytical, or detail-oriented. If you are self-conscious about your age in a youth-obsessed culture, reframe it as possessing wisdom, experience, and a distinctive perspective. This is not about self-deception. It is about selecting a more empowering interpretation of the same reality. Subsequently, you can proceed to strategic integration. This entails actively identifying ways to incorporate your perceived flaw into your identity or your work in a positive manner. For the eye patch wearer, this could involve selecting stylish eye patches that become a fashion statement. It might involve integrating the imagery of an eye or a patch into personal branding or creative endeavors. For an individual with a chronic illness, it could mean advocating for others with similar conditions, transforming their personal challenge into a platform for change. The crucial element here is to move from concealment to exhibition, from defense to offense, but in a way that feels authentic. Humor and self-amusement are indispensable tools throughout this process. When someone makes a remark about your eye patch, rather than becoming defensive, attempt a playful response. "It's my personal blind spot detector," or "this is where all my best ideas are stored." This lightens the atmosphere, disarms the critic, and demonstrates your command of the situation. Practicing self-amusement involves finding the humorous aspect of your own eccentricities. If you tend to be clumsy, rather than becoming frustrated each time you stumble, try to find the humor in it. Laugh it off. This enhances your resilience and diminishes your susceptibility to external ridicule. Finally, strategic communication becomes paramount when facing ongoing judgment. This is not about persuading everyone to like you, but about establishing boundaries and effectively articulating your truth. For the eye patch wearer, this might entail having a few prepared, lighthearted responses ready for common inquiries. It could also involve choosing not to engage with individuals who are persistently negative or judgmental. You learn to direct your energy towards those who appreciate your authenticity. You might say, "I understand." 3. Building confidence and security. True confidence and security do not reside in fortifications designed to repel others, nor in the illusion of a flawless existence free from missteps. To anchor our self-assurance in the shifting sands of external opinion, or in the disingenuous guise of another persona, is to build upon a foundation destined to collapse. The tide of judgment or disapproval, when it inevitably rises, will sweep away our carefully constructed edifice. We expend an immeasurable reservoir of energy contorting ourselves into perceived molds of others' desires, perpetually calibrating our comportment, our utterances, even our very appearance. This is an exhausting endeavor, akin to living perpetually on a stage, performing a role, and harboring the gnawing dread of exposure. This relentless pursuit of external validation leaves us adrift, a vessel buffeted by every passing opinion, devoid of direction and perpetually unsettled. Such a precarious existence offers no genuine sanctuary, no true sense of security. The profound secret to cultivating an unshakable and enduring sense of confidence and security lies not in the quest for external approbation, but in the courageous act of owning one's truth. This entails a deep, unreserved acceptance of who you are, precisely as you are, in this very moment. It demands the embrace of your genuine thoughts, your authentic feelings, and the unique tapestry of your characteristics. This includes those aspects you may deem imperfections or vulnerabilities. Consider this: when we endeavor to conceal a part of ourselves, we inadvertently imbue it with a formidable power. It festers into a monstrous entity, perpetually shadowed by the fear of discovery. Conversely, when we choose to acknowledge and claim it, to declare, "Yes, this is an intrinsic part of me," we irrevocably diminish its power. Let us consider an illustrative example. Imagine an individual who must wear an eye patch. For an extended period, they might grapple with profound self-consciousness, attempting to conceal it or feeling acutely embarrassed by lingering glances. Their inner world becomes a constant arena of anxiety, preoccupied with the perceived thoughts of others. This is, in essence, a form of frame battling an internal struggle against external perceptions. But what transpires when this individual chooses to embrace it? What if they begin to perceive it as a distinctive facet of their identity, an element that sets them apart? They might then opt for vibrant, eye-catching eye patches or even weave humor into conversations about it. In doing so, they cease to hide. They project to the world, "This is I, and I am at peace with it." They have transformed an element that others might have wielded as a tool for judgment into a source of personal ownership. This act of reclamation is profoundly potent. It is a declaration to the world, "You cannot wield this against me, for I have already accepted it." This internal acquiescence forms the bedrock of authentic confidence. It is not about achieving perfection, but about embodying authenticity. As we wholeheartedly embrace our genuine selves, we simultaneously begin to transmute our experience of external scrutiny. Judgment from others is an inescapable reality. Individuals will invariably hold opinions, scrutinize, and, at times, criticize. If our sense of security is fragile, these judgments can feel like direct assaults, inflicting pain and eroding our self-belief. However, when our confidence is meticulously cultivated from within, when we have truly integrated our own truth, judgment loses its capacity to wound. It is akin to possessing a robust immune system. The pathogens of criticism struggle to incapacitate us. Consider the concept of rolling with it. This is a pivotal aspect of embracing your truth. When someone offers a remark about a distinctive characteristic, rather than succumbing to defensiveness or distress, a simple, neutral statement, or even a touch of levity can suffice. For instance, if queried about a particular scar, instead of launching into an elaborate, emotionally charged narrative, one might reply, "Oh, that's merely a souvenir from a rather spirited escapade." Or, if an idiosyncratic habit is noted, a gentle smile and a simple, "Indeed, that's just me," can be remarkably effective. These responses tend to disarm, offering little ammunition for further engagement. They do not invite deeper interrogation or debate, but rather acknowledge the observation without allowing it to define or shame you. Another potent strategy lies in the judicious deployment of genuine laughter. When you can locate humor in a situation where someone attempts to judge or provoke, you effectively neutralize their power. It demonstrates an mastery over your own emotional landscape and your personal narrative. This is not about sarcasm or malice, but about identifying the inherent lightness within a situation. If a preposterous comment is made about your appearance, and you can genuinely chuckle and remark, "Well, that's certainly one perspective," you exhibit a profound inner equilibrium that radiates confidence. This self-amusement serves as a crucial bulwark for resilience, allowing you to detach from negativity and maintain your internal equilibrium. It is akin to possessing a clandestine weapon, rendering you impervious to the barbs of criticism. This playful approach does not entail the evasion of significant matters, but rather the recognition that at times, the most effective riposte to judgment is a light heart and a secure sense of self. The psychological metamorphosis that occurs when we embrace a perceived imperfection is nothing short of profound. It ushers us from the precipice of fear and shame into the embrace of acceptance and, indeed, pride. When we cease to view a trait as something to be concealed or rectified, and instead perceive it as a unique thread in the intricate tapestry of our being, it forfeits its power to render us vulnerable. Instead, it transforms into a distinguishing mark, a catalyst for connection, or even a wellspring of fortitude. Reflect upon athletes who have surmounted formidable physical challenges or disabilities. Their journeys are not defined by the obstacle itself, but by their capacity to embrace it, adapt to it, and harness it as a springboard for growth. They do not regard their condition as a deficiency, but as an integral element of their narrative, a testament to their indomitable spirit. This is the essence of transforming judgment into fuel. The external observation, which might once have been intended to diminish them, becomes a luminous marker of their extraordinary odyssey. How, then, can a reader practically implement this profound shift from being wounded by judgment to cultivating self-amusement and inspiration? It commences with incremental steps. The next time a comment arises that carries the weight of judgment, resist the impulse to react instantaneously. Draw a breath. Pose the question, is this individual's opinion the absolute verity, or is it merely their subjective lens? Subsequently, endeavor one of the understated, disarming responses we have explored. Eschew over-explanation, offer a simple, neutral acknowledgement. If a flicker of humor is discernible within the situation, permit yourself a gentle smile, or even a subdued chuckle. This is not about feigning an unblemished reality, but about consciously choosing your response to the prevailing circumstances. Another avenue for cultivating this capacity lies in mindful self-reflection. Perhaps maintaining a journal would prove beneficial. When you encounter judgment, meticulously record the event, your emotional response, and then contemplate how you might have responded had you been securely anchored in your authenticity. What would a confident, self-accepting iteration of yourself articulate or enact? This practice serves to fortify your mental resilience for these more empowered responses. Over time, these small, deliberate choices engender a potent internal transformation. You begin to place greater credence in your own self-assessment than in the pronouncements of others. The unparalleled liberation that accrues from actively transmuting external judgment into self-amusement or inspiration is immeasurable. When the specter of others' opinions no longer holds sway, you are liberated to embody your true self. You are free to make choices guided by your intrinsic values and aspirations, unburdened by the dread of censure. This unfettered freedom is the very wellspring of genuine confidence. You are not performing for applause, you are simply inhabiting your life, authentically, and this authenticity possesses an irresistible magnetism. Individuals are drawn to those who are unfeigned. They are inspired by those who are at ease within their own skin, who have mastered the art of navigating the world with grace and self-possession. This internal security further empowers us to act from a position of strength, rather than mere reaction. When we are firmly rooted in our authenticity, our actions are propelled by our core convictions and our genuine desires. We are not perpetually reacting to external pressures or striving to appease every individual. For instance, if you harbor a fervent passion for a particular pastime that might strike others as unconventional, a secure individual will pursue it with unadulterated joy and unwavering conviction, irrespective of its popularity. Conversely, an insecure individual might hesitate, fret over perceived opinions, and perhaps even abandon their pursuit altogether. The counsel to give them nothing serves as a potent illustration of authentic, non-reactive conduct. It signifies a refusal to engage in their game of judgment, a refusal to feed their inclination to provoke. It is a quiet strength that speaks volumes. Ultimately, the construction of confidence and security is an internal undertaking. It is a pilgrimage of self-discovery and self-acceptance. It is the profound realization that your unique truth is not a vulnerability to be concealed, but a formidable strength to be embraced. When you claim your narrative in its entirety, with all its unexpected detours, its perceived imperfections, and its moments of hard-won triumph, you erect a bulwark of security that no external judgment can breach. This marks the inception of truly leveraging your inherent advantage, the profound advantage of being authentically you. Having meticulously examined the genesis of true confidence and security from within, forged through the embrace of our authentic selves, our attention now pivots to the practical instruments and communicative strategies that empower us to navigate the inevitable external judgments and challenges with both grace and potency. The subsequent section will delve into the intricacies of navigating judgment with strategic communication. Conclusion: the unfolding narrative within these pages has led us to a singular, potent revelation. Your most formidable self is, unequivocally, your truest self. We have witnessed the persistent pressure the world exerts, urging us to don ill-fitting masks, to contort ourselves into preordained molds that chafe against our inherent shape. The relentless performance of being someone other than oneself is an exhausting endeavor, akin to perpetually wrestling with a framework that refuses to accommodate our form. Yet, the profound advantage, the veritable authenticity advantage, emerges not from appeasing every whim of external expectation, but from the courageous reclamation of our own being. This is not an exhortation towards unattainable perfection, rather, it is a call to radical honesty. It is the profound recognition that the very qualities that render us distinct, the aspects we may have harbored with shame, are, in fact, the wellsprings of our greatest strengths. We have charted pathways through the cacophony of judgment, not by retreating into obscurity, but by standing resolutely within the citadel of our own truth. Recall the concept of frame battling, that ceaseless exertion to project a particular image, a desperate warding off of criticism. But what if, instead, we simply refuse to engage in that futile conflict? What if we actively embraced what I have sometimes termed the pirate thing, those singular facets of ourselves that refuse to blend into the common tapestry? This book has illuminated the truth that vulnerability is not synonymous with weakness. It is, in fact, the very nexus of human connection. When we dare to reveal ourselves, truly and utterly, with all our eccentricities and imperfections laid bare, a profound alchemy transpires. The power that others might wield through judgment begins to dissipate. Herein lies the genesis of true strength, not in concealment, but in the bold, unapologetic presentation of our authentic selves. Consider genuine laughter, for instance. It is far more than a mere auditory phenomenon. It is a potent instrument of disarming, a bridge of connection, a gentle reminder not to succumb to the gravity of the world nor to ourselves. The acceptance of that which lies beyond our control, be it a distinctive physical trait or a formative past experience, is not an act of surrender, it is a profound declaration of ownership. It is the resonant affirmation, "This is me, and I am, in my entirety, enough." The scrutiny we often dread can, in a remarkable turn, transform into our most formidable ally. When we claim ownership of our presence, when we cease to recoil from the natural luminescence our uniqueness casts, we unlock an extraordinary advantage. This is the active dismantling of the projections others may hold, the deliberate supersession of those borrowed images with our own authentic narrative. The fear of being perceived as attention-seeking or pitiable often festers more acutely within the confines of our own minds than in the arena of external reality. When you project an unshakable confidence in your authentic self, that insidious fear loses its dominion. You ascend to the role of protagonist in your own epic, not through an absence of flaws, but through the sheer, unadulterated courage of being unapologetically you. This is not a call for ostentatious displays. It is in homage to the quiet fortitude required to simply show up as yourself in every fleeting moment. Living authentically is not a static destination to be reached, but a dynamic practice, a daily recommitment to a profound choice. Each dawn presents an opportunity to step fully into your truth. Embrace the nascent discomfort, the subtle whispers of judgment, as fertile ground for growth and resilience. Navigate the ebb and flow of existence, secure in the knowledge that your authentic self is your most steadfast compass. The reverberations of this singular choice extend outward, imbuing your relationships, your endeavors, and the very fabric of the world around you with a newfound vitality. The ultimate advantage, the one that truly liberates your spirit, lies in the unwavering embrace of your authentic self. Step boldly into that inherent power. Claim your truth as your own. The advantage, unequivocally, is yours to seize.